In the summer of 1776, 13 American colonies signed a document declaring independence. But without a professional military, the act was a suicide mission. This data visualization highlights the material reality of the conflict. On one side, the British Empire controlled a massive global treasury and the world's most dominant navy. On the other, the Continental Army started from zero. While colonial militias possessed high morale and local knowledge, they lacked the gunpowder, they lacked the currency and manufacturing base required to win. Statistics and logistics pointed toward a swift British victory. Declaring independence was a bold political gesture, but it remained a hollow one without a massive influx of external military power to sustain it. That power came from the French monarchy, which moved to fill the strategic void. King Louis XVI was not motivated by a sudden devotion to democratic ideals. Instead, the French court saw a chance to settle a score. Only 13 years earlier, France had been crushed by Britain in the 7 Years' War, losing nearly all its North American territory. This was the classic logic of a proxy war. By supporting the American rebellion, France could bleed the resources of its greatest rival without committing to a full-scale invasion of the British Isles. To the French ministry, the survival of the United States was a secondary benefit. The primary goal was the calculated dismantling of British global influence. France began its intervention in the shadows. Through front companies and secret agents, they funneled essential muskets, ammunition, and cash to the rebels, all while maintaining a mask of official neutrality. The trajectory of the war shifted in late 1777 at the Battle of Saratoga. The surrender of an entire British field army to American forces provided the evidence the French crown needed. It demonstrated that the Continental Army could win a formal, large-scale engagement against professional regulars. Openly declaring war on Britain was a precarious gamble for France. Before risking the treasury and the fleet, the king required certainty that the Americans were a capable fighting force rather than a collapsing insurgency. Saratoga validated the risk. In the eyes of European diplomats, the colonies had transitioned from a doomed revolt into a strategic asset worth the cost of a formal alliance. Following the success at Saratoga, France and the United States signed the 1778 Treaty of Alliance, bringing the French military out of the shadows. The scale of support increased immediately. French financial aid stabilized the American economy, and thousands of veteran French soldiers began arriving on American soil to join the land campaign. The most significant shift, however, occurred at sea.
The arrival of the French Navy ended Britain's absolute control over the Atlantic coast, forcing the Royal Navy to defend its supply lines for the first time in the war. The alliance forced Britain to pivot. The conflict was no longer a local rebellion. It was a global war that required the British to defend their interests from the Caribbean to the English Channel. This escalation culminated in 1781 during the Siege of Yorktown. On the left of this map, American and French regiments pinned Cornwallis against the York River, cutting off inland movement. Panning right to the Chesapeake Bay, French warships blocked the sea lanes. The British were trapped by land and sea. It was a masterclass in joint military coordination. The trap left the British command with no escape and no way to receive reinforcements. With no path forward, Cornwallis surrendered. This defeat effectively destroyed the viability of the British military campaign in North America. The disaster at Yorktown, combined with the ruinous cost of the war, forced the British government to the negotiating table. These signatures and wax seals on the Treaty of Paris represent the moment Britain officially recognized the United States as an independent nation. Traditional narratives often credit the American victory solely to the determination of the colonial militias. While American grit was essential, it was not sufficient. Without French capital, French regiments, and the specific intervention of the French Navy, the revolution would likely have ended in a total British victory. The United States was born from a convergence of local rebellion and foreign strategic necessity. American determination was the engine, but French vengeance provided the fuel that drove the revolution to its conclusion.